Hello, my friends. We often think of calmness as something people either have or don't have, like eye color or height. Some people are just naturally calm, while others are wired to be anxious, reactive, or easily overwhelmed, right? Wrong. Calm is not a fixed personality trait. It is a skill that can be developed, refined, and strengthened over time. It's just like learning to play an instrument or training for a marathon. At first, it feels unnatural and difficult, but with consistent effort, it becomes second nature. The good news is that anyone, no matter how reactive or stressed they may feel, can train their mind to be calm. But the first step is shifting our mindset. We have to stop believing that calmness is something we're either born with or without, and start seeing it as something we can build. Think about how athletes train their bodies. They don't just wake up one day and run a marathon effortlessly. They train day after day, week after week. They push themselves, recover, and repeat until their muscles are strong enough to endure. Training the mind for calm is no different. It requires practice, repetition, and a willingness to work through discomfort. The first time you try to stay calm in a stressful moment, it will feel unnatural. Your heart will race, your emotions will surge, and your instinct will be to react. But just like a runner building endurance, if you keep practicing, if you keep choosing to pause, breathe, and respond instead of react, your ability to remain calm will grow. Over time, what once felt impossible will start to feel automatic. The biggest mistake we make when trying to become calmer is expecting immediate results. We read a book on mindfulness, take a deep breath before an argument, or try meditation once, and when we still feel stressed, we assume calmness just isn't for us. But no one builds a skill overnight. Imagine a guitarist picking up an instrument for the first time and expecting to play a flawless song instantly. It wouldn't happen. The same is true for staying calm. There will be days when you slip, when you react out of frustration, when you feel like you're not making progress. But every time you practice, even if you don't get it right, you are strengthening that muscle. You are rewiring your brain to handle stress differently. And with enough consistency, your default reaction will shift from panic to presence. One of the key elements of building calm as a skill is awareness. You can't change what you don't notice. Many of us go through life unaware of how often we react impulsively, how frequently we let stress dictate our actions. But once we start paying attention, we create space for change. The next time you feel overwhelmed, instead of immediately reacting, take a step back. Observe the feeling. Where is it in your body? What thoughts are running through your mind? By simply noticing without judgment, you create the opportunity to choose a different response. This small shift from reacting unconsciously to responding with awareness is the foundation of a calm mind. Another essential part of training for calm is learning to regulate the nervous system. When we feel threatened, whether by an argument, a deadline, or unexpected bad news, our brain goes into fight or flight mode. Our body releases stress hormones, our heart rate increases, and our thinking becomes clouded. In these moments, calmness feels impossible. But the truth is, our body listens to what we tell it. If we take slow, deep breaths, if we relax our muscles, if we remind ourselves that we are safe, our nervous system will start to settle. The more we practice this, the more quickly our body will learn to return to a state of calm, even in difficult situations. It's not about eliminating stress. It's about training ourselves to respond to it differently. The most important thing to remember is that calmness is a lifelong practice. It's not about reaching a point where nothing ever bothers you. It's about getting better at navigating life's challenges with steadiness and grace. The world will always be chaotic. People will frustrate you, unexpected problems will arise, but if you commit to training your mind, if you choose to practice calm every single day, you will build a strength that no external situation can shake. And that kind of calm, the kind that is earned, not given, is the most powerful kind of all. In a world that glorifies speed, reaction, and instant responses, pausing can feel like weakness. We live in a culture that tells us we have to think fast, act fast, and keep moving or we'll fall behind. But the truth is, speed without intention is chaos. The ability to pause before reacting, before speaking, before making a decision, that is where true power lies. A pause is not hesitation, it is wisdom. It is the space between impulse and action, between emotion and reaction. And in that space, we reclaim control over ourselves. When we embrace the pause, we give ourselves the chance to choose our response instead of being controlled by the moment. Most of us are conditioned to react instantly. Someone says something that upsets us and we fire back. We receive bad news and panic sets in. We feel stress building and we let it spill over onto the people around us. But every time we react without pausing, we give up control. We let external circumstances dictate our emotions, our actions, and ultimately our peace. Imagine if we could break that cycle. Imagine if, instead of reacting on autopilot, we trained ourselves to stop just for a moment, that single moment of pause, that small breath before action is what separates a life of constant stress from a life of intentional calm. The pause is a practice, not a perfection. It won't come naturally at first. Our instincts will push us to fill the silence, to react quickly, to say something, do something, fix something. But if we make a habit of pausing, if we train ourselves to stop before we react, it will change everything. The pause gives us time to assess, is this worth my energy? Is my reaction aligned with who I want to be? Will this matter in a day, a week, a year? Most of the time, when we give ourselves that space, we realize that what we were about to say or do wasn't necessary. We learn that not every comment needs a reply, not every challenge needs immediate action, and not every emotion needs to be acted upon. One of the most powerful aspects of the pause is its ability to defuse tension. In conflict, for example, a well-timed pause can prevent an argument from escalating. When someone criticizes you, your instinct might be to defend yourself, to lash out, to prove them wrong. But if you pause, even for 3 seconds, you give yourself time to shift from reaction to response. You create space to breathe, to think, to decide whether engaging is even necessary. More often than not, the best response is no response at all. The pause allows you to conserve your energy for what truly matters instead of being pulled into every moment of negativity. The pause isn't just for moments of anger or conflict. It applies to every aspect of life. When we rush to make decisions without pausing, we often make choices we regret. When we rush to speak, we say things we don't mean. When we rush through life, we miss the moments that matter. The pause teaches us to slow down, to be present, to experience life fully instead of racing through it mindlessly. It reminds us that urgency is often an illusion and that the best decisions, words, and actions come from a place of steadiness, not panic. The pause is what allows us to respond from a place of wisdom instead of fear. Learning to embrace the pause is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. It allows us to show up in the world with more patience, more clarity, and more control over our own emotions. It is not a sign of weakness, but of deep inner strength. Because in a world that rewards reaction, the ability to pause is revolutionary. So the next time you feel yourself being pulled into stress, into anger, into fear, stop, breathe. Give yourself the space to choose, because that space, that pause, is where your power truly lives. Most of us go through life feeling emotions without fully understanding them. We say we're stressed when we're actually overwhelmed. We say we're fine when we're actually hurt. We say we're angry when deep down we're actually feeling rejected or afraid. We experience emotions every day, yet we rarely take the time to name them accurately. But here's the truth. When we can name what we're feeling, we can manage it instead of letting it control us. If we don't know what we're dealing with, we can't respond in a way that serves us. Naming our emotions is the first step to emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is the foundation of a calm and grounded mind. The power of naming our emotions comes from the fact that it shifts us from being inside the feeling to observing it. When we say, I am frustrated, we are consumed by the emotion. But when we say, I am experiencing frustration, we create distance. We separate ourselves from the feeling and gain the ability to look at it with curiosity instead of judgment. This small shift gives us power. It reminds us that emotions are not permanent states. They are temporary experiences. And if they are temporary, that means we don't have to react impulsively. We can choose how we want to respond. Most of us were never taught how to properly name our emotions. We learned simple categories: happy, sad, angry. But emotions are far more complex than that. Feeling angry could actually mean feeling unheard, disrespected, or powerless. Feeling anxious could actually mean feeling unprepared, uncertain, or afraid of failure. The more specific we get, the better we can address what's actually going on. If we mislabel an emotion, we risk handling it the wrong way. If we think we're just annoyed but don't realize we're actually feeling undervalued, we might lash out at someone instead of addressing our deeper need for appreciation. Naming our emotions correctly allows us to respond to the real issue instead of just reacting to surface level feelings. Another benefit of naming emotions is that it takes away their intensity. When we bottle up emotions, they build pressure. But when we acknowledge them, when we put a name to them, we take back control. It's like turning on the lights in a dark room. The fear of the unknown disappears. Research shows that simply naming an emotion can reduce its power over us. Instead of drowning in stress, we can say, I'm feeling overwhelmed because I have too much on my plate. Instead of feeling helpless, we can say, I'm feeling uncertain about the future and that's making me anxious. Just saying it out loud or even in our own minds gives us clarity. The way we talk about our emotions also affects how we experience them. When we say, I am anxious, we make it part of our identity. But when we say, I am feeling anxious, we remind ourselves that it's just a temporary state. It's not who we are. It's just what we're feeling in this moment. And feelings pass. They come and go like waves. But if we don't name them, if we don't acknowledge them, they can grow stronger and control our actions in ways we don't even realize. The ability to name emotions is what allows us to work through them instead of being trapped by them. At the end of the day, emotions are messages. They are trying to tell us something. Frustration might be telling us that a boundary has been crossed. Sadness might be telling us that something matters deeply to us. Anxiety might be reminding us to prepare for something important. Instead of pushing emotions away, we need to listen to them. Because when we name our emotions, we don't just understand ourselves better, we also learn how to navigate life with greater clarity, intention, and peace. Life is full of challenges, some expected, some completely out of the blue. And when they hit, our first instinct is often frustration, resistance, or even defeat. We ask, why is this happening to me? We see obstacles as setbacks, as unfair burdens that make life harder. But what if we flip the script? What if instead of seeing challenges as things that hold us back, we saw them as opportunities to grow? The way we frame difficulties determines how we experience them. Challenges will always exist, but how we choose to interpret them can either empower us or break us. The key is understanding that every challenge carries a hidden lesson, a chance to develop resilience, wisdom, and strength we wouldn't have gained otherwise. Reframing challenges as opportunities doesn't mean pretending everything is easy or ignoring pain and struggle. It means choosing to look at difficulties through a different lens. Instead of seeing failure as a sign to give up, we can see it as feedback, a lesson in what didn't work and a guide toward what might. Instead of seeing rejection as a personal attack, we can see it as redirection, proof that we're being guided towards something better suited for us. Instead of seeing setbacks as punishments, we can see them as necessary pauses that help us reflect and realign. The reality is, some of the best things in life come from challenges that once felt impossible. But we only realize that when we step back and shift our perspective. Think about a time when you faced something difficult, maybe a job loss, a breakup, a personal failure. In the moment, it might have felt like the end of the world, but looking back, can you see how that situation pushed you towards something better? Maybe losing that job forced you to find a career that actually fulfilled you. Maybe that heartbreak led you to develop deeper self-respect and find a healthier relationship. Maybe that failure taught you lessons that made you wiser and more capable in the long run. Challenges force us to evolve. They shake us out of comfort zones and demand that we grow. And while we don't always see it immediately, the truth is, struggle is often the birthplace of our greatest transformation. One of the most powerful ways to reframe challenges is by asking different questions. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what can this teach me? Instead of saying, this is so unfair, try asking, how can I grow from this? The questions we ask shape the meaning we give to our experiences. If we ask disempowering questions, we'll feel like victims. But if we ask questions that invite growth and self-discovery, we turn challenges into stepping stones. When we look at difficulties through a lens of curiosity rather than defeat, we open ourselves up to possibilities we never considered before. Another important part of reframing challenges is trusting that struggles are temporary. When we're in the middle of a hard season, it can feel like it will never end. But every challenge has an expiration date. Pain fades, circumstances change, and we adapt. When we remind ourselves that tough times don't last forever, we give ourselves the patience and grace to endure them. And often, when we come out on the other side, we realize that the very thing we thought was breaking us was actually shaping us into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. Challenges aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones, if we choose to see them that way. At the heart of this mindset shift is a simple but powerful truth. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. Life will throw unexpected difficulties our way. That's a given. But we get to decide whether we see those difficulties as barriers or as opportunities for growth. We get to decide whether we let them defeat us or strengthen us. The moment we start looking at challenges as invitations to evolve rather than punishments to endure, we unlock a new level of resilience and power. And when we embrace that perspective, no challenge can truly break us. Because we understand that every challenge is, at its core, a hidden opportunity. Life has a way of piling up responsibilities, expectations, pressures, and emotions, all stacking on top of each other until one day we feel like we're going to break. We've all been there in those moments when stress feels suffocating, when emotions are too heavy to carry, when our patience is gone, and we're on the verge of snapping. And often we tell ourselves to just push through, to keep going, to be strong. But true strength isn't about pushing until we shatter. It's about knowing when to pause, when to take a breath, when to step back before we reach our breaking point. Because if we don't learn to breathe before we break, we risk losing ourselves in the process. Breathing sounds simple, even obvious, but in moments of stress, we forget to do it. When we're overwhelmed, our breathing becomes shallow and fast, our body tenses, our mind races. We move into survival mode, ready to fight, flee, or shut down completely. And in this state, we lose access to the part of our brain that helps us think clearly and make good decisions. We react instead of respond. We lash out, we shut down, we spiral. But the moment we take a deep breath, one conscious, intentional inhale, we send a signal to our body. I am safe. I am in control. I can handle this. That single breath can be the difference between reacting in a way we regret and responding in a way we're proud of. The power of breath isn't just physical, it's deeply emotional. When we don't take time to pause and breathe, emotions build up inside us like steam in a pressure cooker. Stress turns into exhaustion, frustration turns into resentment, sadness turns into numbness, and one day we explode or we shut down completely. But breathing, truly pausing to take in air, to slow down, to create space between stimulus and reaction, is how we release that pressure before it breaks us. It allows us to process emotions instead of burying them, to acknowledge what we're feeling instead of running from it. A single breath won't solve everything, but it will create just enough space for us to step back and regain control. We often think that taking a break, pausing to breathe, stepping away for a moment is weakness. We believe that to be productive, to be strong, we have to keep pushing forward. But nothing functions at its best when it's running on empty. A car running without maintenance will eventually break down. A phone used nonstop will die without being recharged. And humans are no different. If we never allow ourselves to pause, to breathe, to reset, we will eventually break down mentally, emotionally, physically. The strongest people are not the ones who push through at all costs. They are the ones who recognize when they need to stop and take a breath before moving forward. Breathing before you break is an act of self-awareness and self-compassion. It's recognizing the signs that you're reaching your limit, tight shoulders, a short temper, a restless mind, and choosing to do something about it before it's too late. It's stepping away from an argument before you say something you don't mean. It's closing your eyes and taking 10 deep breaths when anxiety threatens to take over. It's reminding yourself that rest is not a luxury, it's a necessity. When we learn to breathe before we break, we don't just protect our peace, we also show up as better versions of ourselves for the people around us. At the end of the day, life will always be demanding. Stress won't disappear. Challenges won't stop coming. But the way we handle them can change. We don't have to wait until we're overwhelmed, burnt out, or broken to take care of ourselves. We can choose to pause. We can choose to breathe. And in that breath, we find clarity, strength, and the space to keep going, not out of exhaustion, but from a place of balance and control. So before you break, take a breath. It might just be the thing that saves you. When we think of courage, we often picture boldness, action, and intensity. We imagine warriors charging into battle, leaders making tough decisions, or people standing up for what they believe in, no matter the cost. But what if the greatest form of courage isn't loud or aggressive? What if true courage comes from a place of calm, the ability to stay steady in the face of adversity, to remain grounded when everything around us is chaotic? That is real bravery. Courage isn't about being reckless or fearless. It's about having the ability to stand firm, to think clearly, and to act with intention. And none of that is possible without a foundation of calm. Too often, we equate calmness with passivity, as if staying composed means we aren't strong enough to fight. But the truth is, calmness is a form of strength that most people never master. Anyone can react in anger, panic, or fear. That's easy. What's difficult is maintaining composure when the world is pushing you to react. It takes courage to hold your ground when emotions are high, to resist the urge to lash out when provoked, to breathe deeply instead of being swept away by fear. Calmness allows us to access courage in its purest form, not driven by impulse, but by clarity and wisdom. Think about a time when you were faced with a difficult decision. If you acted out of panic, the decision likely wasn't your best one. Fear clouds judgment, making us act from a place of survival rather than strategy. But when we take a step back, when we allow ourselves to breathe and approach the situation with a calm mind, we make better choices. That's because courage isn't just about acting, it's about acting wisely. And wisdom only comes when we are calm enough to think clearly. A calm mind sees options that a frantic mind misses. A calm heart finds strength where a restless heart sees only obstacles. Some of the bravest people in history, leaders, activists, and change makers, weren't just courageous, they were deeply calm. They faced adversity with unshakable steadiness. They understood that reacting emotionally would only give power to their enemies. Instead, they remained composed, using their clarity of mind to strategize, to inspire, to lead. Calmness doesn't mean we aren't feeling fear, frustration, or anger. It means we choose not to let those emotions control us. And that choice, that ability to remain steady when the world is shaking, is one of the highest forms of courage. Cultivating calmness isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about mastering them. It's about recognizing when we're being triggered and choosing to pause before reacting. It's about training ourselves to return to our breath, to remind ourselves that we have the power to control how we respond to any situation. The more we practice calmness, the stronger our courage becomes. Because when we no longer allow external chaos to dictate our internal state, we become unstoppable. We no longer act out of fear, we act out of purpose. We no longer waste energy on unnecessary battles, we save it for the fights that truly matter. At its core, courage and calm go hand in hand because true bravery isn't about charging into battle blindly. It's about knowing when to fight, when to wait, and when to walk away. It's about standing firm in our values, even when the world tries to shake us. It's about trusting ourselves enough to know that we don't need to react to every storm. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is remain still and let the storm pass. When we embrace both courage and calm, we move through life with strength, resilience, and a quiet power that cannot be broken.